South Africa is not alone in drawing attention to Israel's genocidal rhetoric against Palestinians in Gaza.
But South Africa is leading the charge. The country launched a genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice and called for interim measures to be upheld by the court, including a ceasefire and increased humanitarian aid to Gaza.
The court is not required to determine that the only inference to be drawn from the available evidence is genocidal to order provisional measures.
A judgment on these measures is expected shortly, but celebrations started on Palestinian soil as soon as their case had been argued at The Hague, at the feet of the Nelson Mandela statue in Ramallah.
Thank you to South Africa. We believe that many countries felt our pain, but South Africa decided to put it materially on paper, and file a case.
And here in South Africa, under the gaze of its founding father, the solidarity runs deep. South African liberation has long been linked with Palestinian resistance, spearheaded by Nelson Mandela. And even after the end of South African apartheid in 1994, he's famously quoted as saying, "Our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians."
There's no freedom that will be complete in the world without the freedom of other people. We are a connected humanity.
Anti-apartheid veteran Reverend Frank Chikani has just come back from the West Bank and says he saw stark parallels with apartheid South Africa.
So it has been perfected. It's on the basis of racial discrimination. The laws are graded. If you are a Palestinian, Arab, Israeli, your rights go this far and not further.
Whatever the legal outcome, many South Africans will keep marching for Palestine, as they've done in recent months, but also for decades.
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
We outraged at the inhumanity of the genocide being perpetrated on the Palestinians in Gaza.
What is happening in Palestine right now is worse than what happened in South Africa. You know, we didn't have a complete annihilation of families.
Outrage has given way to cautious anticipation with the ruling imminent.
Whatever the ruling is and whatever Israel decides to do with that, because, you know, powerful actors very rarely comply with legal rulings, but it is a remarkable moment in thinking about this. You know, South Africa's really pushed the law to its limits.
Whichever way the court rules, South Africa versus Israel will go down as a landmark case. Win or lose, a precedent has been set. Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky News, Johannesburg.
Okay, let's speak with our international affairs editor, Dominic Waghorn, who joins us from The Hague ahead of tomorrow's ruling. Dom, what are the Israelis saying?
Yeah, and that's the kind of South African case, isn't it? But from the Israeli point of view, it has to be said that they reject vehemently these allegations against them. And many Israelis are deeply offended and wounded that this case has been brought against them, being charged with a genocide for a country that has been founded in the wake of the worst genocide in history. And many Israelis believe that October the 7th itself was a genocidal act carried out by an organisation that is hell-bent and sworn to the genocidal destruction of the Jewish state. So they reject that. And in the court, they had various ways of pushing back against the South African claims. They say they're acting in self-defence against Hamas. They're not trying to kill all Palestinians because they're Palestinians. They're simply trying to eradicate the threat posed by Hamas. They say they've carried out and are still carrying out various measures to try and protect civilians, which they wouldn't be doing if they were acting genocidally. And they've also pushed back against South Africa's strongest attack, possibly, which was the claims that a number of Israeli senior officials were making genocidal incitements, saying that that was just rhetoric. It was rhetoric uttered in moments of anguish and trauma. They also say the South Africans were politically motivated in bringing this case because of their close ties with Palestinians and with Hamas. The problem for the Israelis, though, is if the court does rule against them in this provisional ruling tomorrow, they can't really say the court itself is politically motivated. It is a very highly regarded institution of the UN's judicial organisation, and they will have to accept whatever provisional ruling is handed down to them, at least for the time being.
Dom, just briefly, is there a sense of where this might go?
Well, the South Africans have asked the court to do two things. First of all, and over this will take a number of years, establish whether genocide is being committed in a final ruling. But they've also asked for a provisional action to be taken by the court. And all they need for that is to establish that there is a plausible case that genocide is being committed. And a number of legal scholars think they possibly have met that bar, particularly because of these incitement, these words uttered by Israeli officials. If the provisional ruling does go against them, then the court can order a ceasefire in Gaza, and Hamas tonight have said they will comply with a ceasefire as well, even though they're not bound by the rulings of the court. They could fall short of that. The judges, they could say they want to have other mitigating circumstances and rulings imposed, for instance, more humanitarian aid to be sent into the Palestinians of Gaza. It's impossible to say where it goes from here, but if a ruling is given against Israel and they do not comply, then the UN Security Council could take punitive action against them, unless, of course, America, their ally, exercises its veto in the Security Council.
Dom, thanks so much for that update from The Hague.